Reach is absolutely incredible, but it's very different than I expected, and I'm sure it's going to rub some people the wrong way. Now, I'll of course explain exactly what that means, and I'll give you all the other details you need to know about this game. There are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead to a specific point, but let's just start off with the basic information. Reach is currently available for $39.99 on all major VR platforms, including the Meta Quest 3, 3S, PlayStation VR 2, and Steam VR. Coming from ndreams, the same studio that gave us other fantastic titles, such as Phantom Covert Ops, Fracked, and Synapse. Now this time they're giving us an action-adventure, story-driven title with a strong emphasis on extreme parkour and fast-paced combat that was built from the ground up for VR. The campaign is made up of 14 different levels, or roughly 6 to 10 hours of gameplay, depending on how fast you get good. And this leads us to the point that surprised me the most, the overall gameplay. Being familiar with previous titles from ndreams like Fracked and Synapse, I thought this was going to be a much more in-your-face, over-the-top, combat-oriented game, but that's not the case, at least not in the beginning. Actually, there's a huge emphasis on the parkour system, climbing and traversal, and I know some people are not going to be super happy with that. It's to the point that in the first 2 hours of this game, I honestly think I only killed like 10 bad guys. So you might be thinking, wait a second, what is going on? This plays, especially in the beginning, a lot more like Mirror's Edge, or in VR terms Stride, but this is actually a good version of that. You're running around, jumping from building top to building top, climbing things. It's a puzzle. You gotta find stuff. The one thing I was missing is they don't really hide any secrets anywhere. Like, they don't give you a reason to kind of explore the environment. It's actually beeline through the environment, which feels surprisingly good. But once I understood this, the game became much more fun. During my original playthrough, the first few levels actually felt a bit tedious. Climbing in VR can be a love it or hate it thing, and if you do happen to be on the hated side, I will say this is some of the most fun VR climbing I've ever done. Now, between the storyline and the overall mechanics, they do manage to keep parkour and climbing exciting. It's not like Horizon Call of the Mountain, where I found it pretty boring and I could have skipped over those parts. This is cool. Once you get into it, once you know the mechanics and you can really fling yourself, it's quite forgiving. You could have tons of speed and just think of it like Mirror's Edge and not like a slow climbing simulator where you have to be careful. Just go for it and you'll thank me later. It feels great. Now, I could actually spend a lot of time on how well done the climbing mechanics are, but I'm sure people aren't here for a high-budget climbing simulator, so let's get into that combat. Now, there are guns in this game, but primarily you're going to be using a bow that has a series of different arrows and a shield. You can also use both of these for traversing the world because, like I said, parkour is a major mechanic here. There's also stealth kills, so if you want to sneak up on guys, take them out, go through a room without getting noticed, you could do that. But this guy, if stealth is optional, I'm killing everyone. And here, I think the game is pretty forgiving. It's not super challenging. I'm noticing a good amount of auto aim on my bow and even on my pistols. They seem to be very forgiving. Like if you're just in the general area of a guy, kind of like you're playing pistol whip, they make sure to hit, which feels good. I'm not going to lie. You could always crank up the difficulty if that's not what you're looking for. Now, I'm sure parts of this game won't be combat heavy enough for everyone, but hopefully this is where you appreciate a good storyline. I'm not going to give away any spoilers or even talk about the setting at all, but I will say it has plenty of twists and turns from the very beginning, and it actually reminds me a lot of the classic VR story-driven title Call of the Starseed. Now, I'm not expecting many people to be familiar with that game, but if you are, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's this very intriguing sci-fi world. And it's easily some of the best storytelling that ndreams has given us. And continuing with cool mechanics, they also have something I've never really seen before, and that's this method of pulling out your shield. You make your fingers make an OK motion like this, and then you just drop your wrist down and the shield pops up. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Kratos in God of War, and then you can just fling your wrist, throw the shield at enemies, and it does bounce off walls and hit off that wall and then connect somewhere else. So they nailed it when it comes to mechanics, and that is something I appreciate the most in VR, because we're going to be doing the same thing over and over, no matter what game you play. So those things that I'm doing over and over have to feel good every time. And here they do. Now from here, I just want to show off a few gameplay clips and then give you guys my final verdict.
Alright, gotta do the big jumpies.
All right, let's go. I don't think I caused that. Wish I had the stamina of a kid. No. This place is falling apart. Holy shit! Jesus, that was close.
Reach is an absolutely incredible VR game that'll most likely be on my top 20 list. It has excellent graphics, even better mechanics, and it goes in a few unexpected directions, which I appreciate. Now, it might not be for everyone because there are long stretches without any combat at all, and you're just parkouring and climbing around the world. However, I will say this is some of the best climbing I've ever experienced. It was, however, lacking polish though. Now I say this because my early access build on both PCVR and Steam had some bugs. They were annoying little nonsense headache bugs, but they shouldn't be there. I don't want to see them in a game of this caliber. And while they were only minor immersion breaking, they need to get fixed. For example, sometimes when I load in on PCVR, like more often than not, it almost seems like I load off the map, die, respawn, and then the level starts. So that's not going to ruin the game, but it's kind of weird and annoying. The Quest version, on one or two occasions, a level just didn't load and I had to shut the game off and restart it. And then you do have some collision issues and stuff like that. Just little bits here and there. Overall, completely playable. Nothing mid-game that broke it, except I did have some issues on the PC side. It did not like AirLink, but that could be PC dependent. It did not run at all with Steam Link, which is my go-to. So I had to go to virtual desktop, which it ran fine with. However, I would have liked to use Steam Link because that's my main go-to. Now, if you're looking for a performance assessment, it runs fine on both the Quest and PCVR, but it's hard for me to do an overall performance valuation when my PC is rocking an RTX 5090. Now, I believe I saw some occasional reprojection on the Quest version, and obviously it could benefit from higher resolution or anti-aliasing, but that's pretty much the same for any Quest game and comes down to mobile hardware limitations. So basically, if you're looking for a beautiful story-driven, big budget game and don't mind a large emphasis on climbing and parkour, definitely pick this up. Maybe give it a week or two. Look for the reviews, look for a day one patch or a week one patch just to get those little issues out. I know ndreams is aware of the issues, they've been reported. So besides those little things, I absolutely love this game. Now, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And as always, I'll see you guys on next time.